All right. Well, we are here today with we have UC. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, UC. Um, Everyone just knows UC already. They hear the name UC, they know who we're talking about. We don't need to include your last name. And we have Joel Crane, um, who for the last I don't know how many years, guys. The It's been the Joel or the UC and Joel show, right? The you guys are always together. Um, Doing something pretty interesting in the Wi-Fi community. But thanks for joining me today on this episode of Under the AP. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to getting to know more about you guys and kind of your adventure through through Wi-Fi. So we're gonna start now with UC. We're just gonna jump right into it. UC, again, welcome. Um, Tell us a bit. I know you're really well known in the community. You've been around for years. You've been working on a lot of the tools that we all, um, love and use regularly. Um, but what I think a lot of us maybe don't know is like the how and why about you getting into Wi-Fi. How did you end up in Wi-Fi? How did you end up at Ekahau in the role that you were in and developing the tool? One of the tools that anybody who's in Wi-Fi, I think, has probably used Ekahau at some point, right? Or some version of one of their tools. So tell us a bit about again about you and your kind of journey into Wi-Fi.
Yeah, thank you, Todd, for having us. It's a pleasure to be on, and it's great to see you in this non-conference but still
Sure.
casual
Yeah.
setting.
Thanks.
So it's great. Um, so yeah, how did I get into it? I guess it was a little bit of an accident. I applied for a summer job at a university, one of those summers when I was studying there. And essentially, all I knew was like a little bit of database stuff and web coding, like Perl and PHP and those kind of things. And then I got invited for an interview at the university, and the professor said, "Well, usually in their job application, people don't tell us that that our website sucks or that you should redo it. But since you are right, you are hired." And that's kind of how I got into the university. I was doing a little bit of coding, database, database slash coding stuff there. And then the university started a pretty sizable project with what wasn't called Wi-Fi back then, but wireless LAN, WLAN, and they started building this kind of like a citywide wireless LAN network. And they not it wasn't only about technology, it was also about like, okay, how do we make actually business out of this, hosting this Wi-Fi network and things like that. It was very early, like 2000, something like that. And since I was the half technical, half business guy, I did a little bit of coding. So I, for example, built one of the first like RTLS or location tracking based applications. So one of our researchers, Antti, if you're listening to this, I still love you, man. Uh, he created a one of the world's first like RTLS location engines that worked over Wi-Fi, and I coded some applications that interfaced with the location engine. You could manage the locations and push content based on where you are in the network, stuff like that. And that's what I did my thesis about. It was also my thesis was a little bit like bipolar. It was about these kind of location aware applications, things like that, but also about like how could one make money out of public Wi-Fi networks, things like that. Probably things that are very, very trivial today, and I'd be ashamed if I read the whole thing. But that's how kind of how I got started with wireless LAN and then Wi-Fi. Well, long story short, at some point, I just accidentally, I was following all the Wi-Fi companies, especially in Finland, because it was my job to kind of understand what's going on. Happened to see a job ad at Ekahau. They were looking for a location tracking focused what was called an application engineer. It was really a systems engineer role. Applied for that and got sucked into the RTLS space immediately. But at the very same time, like one of the first weeks, probably the CEO back then of Ekahau came to me and said, "Hey, there's this. We're thinking of this site survey thing or whatever it's called. Some people have been asking for this kind of stuff. I don't think anybody's done it ever in wireless LAN, but should we look at that? We probably will be looking at that. And then I kind of started, moving from the location tracking space more and more into this what's today called Wi-Fi design space. So I went to Silicon Valley to live there for a while. Did a little bit of both. A lot of like RTLS installations in hospitals and mines and pool sites and wherever. But then also at the same time, I more and more started like, considering the side business, very small, tiny emerging side business as more and more as my baby, which was the what became the Wi-Fi design
Was
tools.
this
And at some point, I was
was this
called back.
because the challenge of designing for real-time location and Wi-Fi? So you guys, we have to have some kind of a tool that will help us design for this. Is that kind of how it led to that?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So, in order to create a good or set up a good location tracking system that's accurate, that works over Wi-Fi, it needed this fingerprinting or calibration. So you needed to walk in different spots and take measurements. Sound familiar? And the tool also, the calibration tool for RTLS or location tracking, it also supported drawing lightweight heat maps in order for the RTLS installer to understand the Wi-Fi network. So people started using that calibrator tool as the world's first uh, productized Wi-Fi site survey tool, and then we kind of span out a proper site
Now
survey
you
tool
said
out of it.
world's first UC. Was Air Magnet not already around at that time? Do you recall?
They did not have a survey tool like this graphical map-based survey tool. I believe they were around, and there were some attempts at some kind of graphical tools like map-based tools, but AirMagnet certainly did not have one. They did have, remember, PDAs or personal digital assistants. AirMagnet had at least their analyzer that was working on a PDA. You put a sleeve on a PDA,
Yep, yep,
TCMCIA card by Lucent or
yep.
Renoco or whatever, and then they could do packet capture, packet analysis based on that. But I do believe AirMagnet survey came after the Ekahau survey
Well,
tool.
interesting. I think it's at least my impression. It's widely known that Air Magnet was like available in that Wi-Fi design software form before Ekahau. But so it's interesting to hear you say that. Well, Ekahau, we kind of got into it even before Air Magnet did.
This is a very common, I don't say misconception, but at least my version of the story is this that Air Magnet came into the business later, but they really knew what to do. They knew the domain better. They knew marketing and sales better. So they actually surpassed Ekahau quite quickly, although we had a head start. And they became the dominant player in that space. And that's why people usually think Air Magnet came first. Well, technically they didn't, but they became the dominant player
Right.
first. They became like a dominant force
Because
first.
they hired Keith Parsons to come help them with it.
One
Yeah,
of the many
I'm sure.
reasons, I'm sure. I'm sure. And there was like, Dean Au, Chachi, those guys, they were really good at what they
Okay.
did as well. But Keith must have played a major
Yeah, I
role in
know he did
there.
something. I don't remember the details, but I know he did help a lot with I think getting that product moving along. Okay, so you're now at this point in your career, you're officially with Ekahau. You started with the real-time location. You got into design, and so it sounds like you were kind of led that Wi-Fi design solution effort. Is that fair to say? And I think that's
Yeah, at least starting
go ahead,
like two.
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that's
Yeah, I mean, at least starting 2005. We can cut there and take it again, by the way,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you're
go for
okay
it.
with that. So
Okay, well, I
so
was gonna say that's um you know, when people get into Wi-Fi, or when they've gotten into Wi-Fi, especially if it's been in the last what 10 10 plus years, um, when they've come across UC, right, it's always been Ekahau, right? You were like, in my opinion, words of Todd here, you were the face of Ekahau. right? All these conferences, you would see UC there. You would go up front. I remember you would give away like lifetime licenses of Ekahau. I'm sure they love that nowadays. Um, and it was just, you were just very engaged in the community, which you continue to be so today. But that, again, that's I think was part of, again, my opinion, what kind of really got Ekahau moving, especially as more and more people, Wi-Fi became more and more important. And again, this is again from my perspective. And there was more people, more engineers doing design work. And companies were realizing how important design work is. And so you were seeing growth, right? And people wanting, uh, you know, the demand for a good Wi-Fi design solution. And because you were out there talking to people, getting input, um, I think that kind of gave you guys a leg up because you were addressing what the users needed, where maybe Air Magnet wasn't as engaged with the community. Again, Todd's perspective here. Um, and that's why I think I just kind of took off, largely because of your engagement with the community and listening to people, listening to the users talking to you. And so I think it was just um, looking back at those years, right, and you being there, kind of promoting that Wi-Fi design solution that Ekahau had, um, and making sure that it fit everyone's, all of our needs who would do design. I think that was you know, a key um, aspect in Ekahau becoming, what it is today. Um, so I know you were with Ekahau for. I'm looking at your LinkedIn right now. It looks like you were there for almost 15 years. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, probably even over. Yeah, yeah, two stints total, probably
Over.
over
Okay.
15 years.
Um, so I want to get into some things. I, you know, I don't know if, if there are limitations on what you can say. I don't know, but I'm just going to ask questions, right? And if you can answer them, great, because I think a lot of us in the community are interested in knowing kind of how things transpired at Ekahau, where again you were the face of Ekahau, according to Todd, right? Um, and Ekahau was acquired by Ziff Davis. Um, and then suddenly it kind of seems like, from an outsider's point of view, kind of watching, the Twitterverse and whatnot and comments on LinkedIn, like something happened, right? Something happened big there that caused an exodus of UC and other talent, Joe included, to leave Ekahau. Can you go into any detail and help us understand like what happened there? Why was there this exodus um, after Ekahau was acquired? What kind of led to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. But yeah, sure, like starting 2005, we were building a product, and I think like that took a few years, and then yeah, kind of becoming in a way, the face. That was like nobody else, I think, wanted to do it, so somebody had to
They
do
gave it
it.
to the janitor, right?
But I've always been kind of a I've always been kind of a product guy, maybe first, but then that was just something that had to be done, and it turned out that being the face also helped in gathering tons of feedback, and maybe that became
Yeah,
something useful. And to Air Magnet's credit, I think they had a really good thing going. They just got unfortunate, with a few acquisitions in a row, and even the best of companies at that point, kind of they become a little bit challenged at that point if they undergo through several acquisitions. So, and uh, again, to Air Magnet or Netally guys is great. We still very much keep in touch. Those guys are amazing to work with. We actually already announced an integration between Hamina's survey app and Hamina's cloud, as well as Netally's handheld devices and stuff
oh,
like
very
that. So
nice.
we very much still keep
Very
in
good.
touch. We work together. You will be able to use your G2, G3, stuff like that together with Hamina. Uh, but yeah, I mean, that's a long-winded introduction to a non-existent answer. Because I mean, you know how it goes. I think companies just they change shape when they are acquired, and that's what happened here as well. And that's the long story, extremely short.
You see, I don't know if after you're done designing Wi-Fi, and you make a big bag of money with Hamina, are you planning on going into politics at all?
I do realize that was a very, very long and pointless answer to a very, very straight up question. I'll try to avoid that kind of answers, but at this point, with that question, I don't have a
Okay.
better answer. I'm afraid you have to ask other
Okay.
people that.
Okay. So you're going to leave us all to continue to speculate then on on what happened there, um, to cause you to decide you got to move on. Okay. So we're not going to get anything out of you. It sounds like.
All I can say is no, I guess not, but it was an amazing ride. I'm sure Joel will agree, but it was an amazing ride. I have nothing but good
Okay.
memories of the
Fair enough.
ride.
So
Same, same. It was a lot of fun.
it seemed like you guys were having a lot of fun there. I mean, you guys again were out and about with the community. You guys were helping develop a tool that we were all using and enjoying, and you were listening to us. And so we, as the community, really, I think, appreciated that, and we flocked towards the tool that you guys were building because it was you were hearing us on what we wanted to use. So, okay, so now you've left then Ekahau, kind of your baby, again, from my perspective. And I know you kind of moved on you went over to Juniper Mist for a little bit, but did you always kind of think that you would end up back in Wi-Fi design and developing your own tool? Was that something that just you kind of had in your head for a while, and this kind of gave you that opportunity to do, or was this just kind of, a year or two after the fact you decided maybe I should do this again?
You know, first of all, ending up at Mist it was an accident. I just happened to visit the Mist HQ and their CEO Sujai. We were supposed to have a coffee, and then he just said, "This is not a coffee. You see, I'm recruiting you, and you're not walking out of here until you're hired." Uh, and the same evening, we went to Bob Friday's place. This was part of their recruiting slash massaging operations, and so went to Bob Friday's place. We had a glass or two of wine, and Bob is the one who said yeah, you see, you might probably start up your own thing again, but give Mist a couple of years. You will learn, startups, Silicon
Hmm.
Valley startups. You will learn growth company. You will learn machine learning in how it's actually used in practice, stuff like that, and you'll be much better equipped with then your own thing in a couple of years. And turns out Bob was right.
Go
That's
go
exactly
figure.
what
Bob
happened.
was right about something that had to do with Wi-Fi. Go figure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's been right about a few things, but yeah, that was definitely one of them. He's quite a visionary, not just in terms of like wireless companies and wireless
Yeah, he
technology.
was. I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch it, but he was the last episode of Under the AP that I did. I sat with Bob Friday. It
Oh,
was
no
during the
kidding.
conference, the WLPC conference. We sat down and did an episode, and it was a lot of fun. He's a visionary for sure. Um, oh,
He's he's a pretty
he is.
amazing
So,
person.
well,
Yeah.
kind of in a nutshell, then, what did you do for Mist, Juniper Mist? What was your efforts there?
I'm still wondering the same thing, and so is probably my ex-boss Sudhir. I do remember we did create this. cardboard cutout of Joel because he bailed out on us on one of the webinars. So we did have
Oh,
flat
jeez.
Joel appear with a voiceover on the web. Anyway, so I guess my title was like a global kind of
Yeah.
technologist. But so first of all, Mist wasn't that big in, especially in Northern Europe, stuff like that. So I was helping out, kind of, start the operations in Northern Europe, Scandinavia, stuff like that. Uh, it was a wide role. Then I was doing quite a bit of marketing, evangelization, that kind of stuff, and I was actually a part of the product management team. So head of product was my boss, and I was creating, or specifying some of the features for the tool and stuff like that. But it was like because Mist product development is in
Hmm.
California, and I guess like in the end, for me, I like my desires are very much in product development, and being in Finland 10 hours away from the mostly Californian product development. Luckily there was product people also in here in Europe, and Wes is in the East Coast and stuff like that, but still it was like for me it was challenging. I was like for the last 15 years, I was able to call the shots. I was able to like very much intimately participate in product development, stuff like that. I could do that here. I could do product development here as well with the people, but maybe not as much as you can when you're in the same space. But don't get me wrong, like that was another like absolutely great ride. Bob, Sudhir, Sujai, Wes, everybody in the team are like just amazing. You know,
And as Bob said, I'm sure you
all the
did
yeah, I have nothing but
good.
good
Yeah,
to
I'm
say.
sure you did actually learn a few things that's helping you now, right, with your new um, business that you started, new company, Hamina. How has it been starting this new company? And how would you say it's going right now as far as is the product where you thought it would be at this time? And just tell us a bit about kind of the inception of Hamina and how it's developed since that inception.
Oh, it's terrible, man. It's all going to shit. No, I'm kidding. We can bleep that out. Uh, so the inception, like 2 years ago, there was no Hamina at all, even on paper, I think. So under 2 years ago, I kind of signed the papers, raised some money, blah, blah, blah. And then we started it with one software architect who essentially laid the foundation. And then we started growing from there. 1.5 years ago, there was maybe three of us, and then there was six. And, we got a couple of contractors, one for UX, one for the integrations with the vendors. They both actually, one of them was in Spain, one of them was in Korea. They both migrated back to Finland. They both wanted to, come full time work for Hamina, which was like amazing. And like the team just started to form, and now we're close to 20,
Wow.
if we count like part timers as well. And yeah, it's definitely. Like, how's it been? It's to me, it's been an amazing ride. Sure, it's a lot of work, but you don't really notice because it's very engaging. Probably a good recipe for burnout in the end, but it's been like you should ask Joel because I'm a bit biased, but it's definitely been good. It's been going pretty much as expected in a sense that, well, the product is way better than I ever could have envisioned because the people that actually make the product, let's say if I've specified like most of the like product now, Joel is also like specifying a lot of it. But like if you look at my specs versus what came out is 1,000 times better. And that's kind of what you're seeing now in the product is not what I expect. It's something that, the team actually, they took my spec, they threw it out and made something a lot better, probably to solve the same problem, but it just ended up a lot
So
better. And now Joel kind of doing much of the specification now. Even the specs are actually better, and the specs and the product are starting to look more and more the same.
yeah, Joel's a pretty sharp guy. I would give him some credit there too. But what would you say?
You could say that.
What
Yeah,
would you
yeah.
say has surprised you in how Hamina has kind of evolved over the last year and a half, 2 years? What's something that's just really kind of surprised you about its development?
Couple of positive surprises come to mind. Uh, First one is I was expecting a lot of problems creating a browser-based software that has to work like really smoothly, really reliably, real-time updates, blah blah blah. So I was expecting us to spend like 60% of the time just making, oh, it doesn't work on Chrome, it doesn't work on Edge, we need to fix this, we need to tweak that. None of that has been true. It's actually amazing how similarly the browsers work these days, on a browser-based web app. So that's been a very positive surprise. The other thing I was concerned about was like, how can I ever like do everything except for coding, especially when we have a team of, let's say, 10 people. We still pretty much had like, nine coders, or we had a UX architect, but nine very senior software architects and me. And I was doing everything else, specifying the product, but also like running the company, raising money, blah, blah, blah. I was like, it's never going to be possible. But it actually was until 10 people. Then it wasn't anymore. But it was possible. And I think it's because companies can run pretty well on autopilot. You can outsource finance. You can outsource most of the kind of non-directly value generating things from a company. Plus, everything runs in the cloud, so you don't need like IT people, stuff like that. These are senior IT savvy people, so nobody needs to help them out in
Sure.
anything. And it's probably because everybody was so senior, and like everybody here has been handpicked by the colleagues. It's always been somebody we already know, who's been hired. So that has helped a lot. There's trust, and we know these guys have done this stuff for a long time. So it makes my
Oh
job
yeah.
so easy. Don't get me wrong, not anymore. We have a COO, we have Joel, we have a sales guy. So now it's kind of starting to open up,
Yeah.
and
I
there's a
think
list to
that's I
do,
think that's crucial for
which means more and more
I
of
think that's
this.
crucial for a startup, right? Like you said, you were able to kind of handpick your team, right? And it's people that you've worked with before. It's people that some of your other teammates have worked with before. And I think when you're able to put together your own team that you've chosen, it's amazing what you can do. So I'm really excited for you guys. I'm happy to hear that you've got that team that you've gathered together. And it's we're seeing the fruits of what you guys of your labors basically, and what this team has been able to do, and we're all very excited to see how things progress. We'll dive a bit more into Hamina as a company later on in the discussion. I want to jump over to Joel right now, but Joel, before I start asking you questions about yourself, fill in the holes for us. What did you see leave out that we all should know?
I feel like he covered a oh well I feel like he encompassed it pretty well as far as what we've been working on recent history, because like UC and I, we were together and this is jumping ahead in my story a little bit, but we worked together at Ekahau for a year. I was there for a year and a half. Obviously he was there for a lot longer, and then we both ended up over at Mist, and I had a pretty similar experience where somebody at Mist was like, "Hey, do you want to come work for us?" And next thing I knew, like there I was. So it it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. But yeah, I think he got all the main bullet points there. Nothing to add at this time, I don't think.
You're a good politician as well, Joel.
Ah, But I will say that we had a lot of fun. We have lots of friends at all of our old jobs, and you never know who you're going to end up working with in the future too. Like you never know, like if you're working if you're working with people, you never know when you might work with them again. If you have a competitor, you never know when they might become an ally. Like I've had that happen several times now, where people that were competitors in the past are now partners or have been partners and things like that. And so I don't know. I just really enjoy working in the industry. I love people. Sometimes we're on opposing teams. Sometimes we're on the same team, but it's always shuffling around.
I
It's
think that
always
makes
moving.
I think that this community that we're part of, right? It's a pretty tight community, and I think it makes it fun, right? We all know that
Mm-hmm.
um, we do what we do for the time that we do it, with the company that we're with, and then we move on. And like you said, you oftentimes will, um, bump into or start working with other folks that maybe you've competed with in the past. But I think that's what kind of keeps this community fun, is that it's a pretty tight community, and we always have opportunities uh, to somehow work together, or at least on some level. A lot of us do, and so that I agree with you, Joel. That's fun.
Totally.
All right, so I'm gonna jump way back. I'm looking at your LinkedIn right now. Tell us a bit about Boise Bible College.
Oh yeah. Okay. So and actually that's a little bit of where my Wi-Fi story begins. So yeah, I went to Bible college. I have an associate's degree in theology because about halfway through that process, I was like, you know what? I don't think paid ministry is where I want to go. And one thing that happened is while I was at school there, they had a network, and it was a bunch of WRT 54Gs. And in the dormitories where I was staying, we were sitting at like neg 80 dBm or something like that if you were on the right side of the dorms, and so we had very very bad Wi-Fi. Of course, this was all 802.11g, so there's multipath. The building was made of metal, like it was just a nightmare from a Wi-Fi perspective. Now back then, I had no understanding of why things were the way they were. I just knew that they were how they were. So I cobbled together a directional antenna with a Pringles can, or maybe it was a soup can. I think I used a soup can, and set up a couple of my own WRT 54Gs, and I kind of became like the Wi-Fi guy for the dormitories. Like everybody came to me for Wi-Fi. And I used NetStumbler a little bit, and I didn't understand why everything was in negatives, and there was just all kinds of things that I didn't get back then. So fast forward a few years, I knew I wanted to get into IT, and so I ended up with a help desk job, and that was a really good starting point. But help desk it can be pretty rough, and so I was still dabbling in Wi-Fi though. I really enjoyed Wi-Fi stuff. And I used an app on Android. Android was relatively new at the time, but I had an app for Android called Insider, and it was by this company called MetaGeek. And I followed them on Twitter, and one day saw a job posting and realized, like, oh wow, they're in my town. They're here in Boise, where I live. Like I didn't even realize that until I saw this job posting. So it was a tech support job, like a frontline tech support job. Applied, interviewed, got the job, and that was my official start in Wi-Fi.
All right, well, let's. I want to back up a bit, just real quick.
So
So you said you were
from
kind of the Wi-Fi guy there at
sure.
at your at the Boise Bible College in the dormitory there. What were you doing? Like how are you fixing Wi-Fi at that time?
Yeah, well, and to be clear, like there was an IT guy that was handling the network, and he's still a really good friend of mine actually, and we see each other every couple weeks. But so what I did is I pointed a directional antenna across the giant parking lot, and it's really bad directional antenna that in hindsight was probably not very directional, but it's something I literally just soldered together. Like I just built this thing in my dorm and pointed it over there. And then I stood up a couple of WRT 54Gs, or I think one of them was like an older 802.11b model, so it wasn't even a WRT 54G. We're talking it was pretty old hardware even by then, because by then we were well into the draft end territory. So I set up those ran routers really, and ran some Ethernet cables around the outside of the building, got permission from facilities to do that, set up a DHCP server, and yeah, basically use my little point to multi-point bridge thing that I cobbled together, and my couple little routers to provide Wi-Fi so that everybody could play Halo 3 and they could play StarCraft and they could have a little bit of internet access. So as far as like fixing problems, I was probably creating just as many as I was fixing, but I at least solved the SNR problem and the RSSI problem. So I did that. It probably introduced like co-channel interference and adjacent channel interference galore because I had no idea what those things were. But hey, we could play StarCraft. So
Well, so then
that
you
was good.
mentioned you were using the Insider software. Um, so is that what
Mm-hmm.
kind of opened up your eyes to kind of what makes Wi-Fi work and the whole idea of different channels and power levels and things like that?
The first tool that I ever really used for Wi-Fi was NetStumbler, which was a Wi-Fi scanner, but there was no graphical capabilities at all. It was just like, here's a list of SSIDs, here's what channels they're on, here's what the transmit power
Yep.
is in dBm, and so on. The problem with just getting a list of networks like that is, since there's no visualization to it, it doesn't teach you anything about what's actually going on. So I didn't understand that there was co-channel interference happening or adjacent channel interference. I didn't even really understand what signal strength in dBm meant. So when a few years later, when I got my hands on Insider and started using that, because of that graphical layout of what is on each channel and how it shows signal strength and things like that in a graphical way, that was a huge learning experience before I even started at MetaGeek. That really helped me understand more about what was going on. I still didn't understand like adjacent channel interference, but I could at least understand like, okay, here's how the spectrum that we're using for
Yeah.
Wi-Fi is laid out. So yeah,
Yeah, you can
hugely
start to
important
visualize it a
in
little bit
my journey on
on
Wi-Fi.
just, you know, adjacent channels and you can just kind of see, signal
Totally.
level and whatnot. And so, yeah, I think that for me, that, seeing that kind of information early on was kind of an eye opener. Like, oh wow, there's some stuff here that I might want to learn more about.
Same,
All right, so you ended up at MetaGeek,
same.
doing tech support, it looks like, and then you got into training. Tell us a little bit about your time there at MetaGeek, and you're moving from role to role and what you liked about it. And then you can even jump forward and tell us a bit about how you ended up back.
Yeah, yeah. So like I said, they hired me on as frontline tech support. So I was the guy that answered the phone. I was the guy that answered most of the emails. And for a short amount of time there, I worked with Trent Cutler, who I was sort of backfilling. He was kind of moving into more of a technical training role. And so I was there to kind of backfill him a little bit. So he taught me the ropes. And I remember when he explained co-channel interference to me for the first time, it was mind blowing. It's like, oh wow, I had no idea. And so then Trent left the company a few months later, and he went and worked for Avar and did some other cool stuff for a while. And he's going to come back into the story here in a little bit, but he definitely taught me the ropes. So then I moved into kind of that technical training role, also doing sales engineering. So, and then also kind of leading like a tech support team there. So at one point we had several people doing tech support, and I was the lead on that. So I did that for about 5 years. And most of my work there was focusing on, of course, spectrum analysis, because that was MetaGeek's main thing, was spectrum analysis, and also packet analysis as well. So people are sending me spectrum recordings and saying, hey, my Wi-Fi isn't working and I don't know why, or I'm an administrator at a school and here's what I'm seeing. What do you think this is? That kind of thing. So I spent a lot of time looking at spectrum analysis captures, and some time looking at packet captures as well, in regards to our packet capture tools, which were mostly focused on performance. We were mostly a performance-oriented packet capture tool. So that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot doing that. You can see though how I definitely came into Wi-Fi from a very different angle than most people do. I think UC might be in a similar boat here in that, I didn't start out like doing network administration in a real capacity and doing route switch and then moving into Wi-Fi like most of our counterparts do, like you probably did. I started out on layer one and did some stuff in layer two with packets, and so that was kind of my big introduction to Wi-Fi.
Cool. Yeah, and I remember, again, at some of those conferences, I remember, of course, Trent Cutler kind of being the kind of a little bit of a face of MetaGeek. I know he went to a lot of the conferences and talked a lot about the tools. And then
Totally.
you kind of did the same thing for a bit there, um, with MetaGeek. And at the time, I know for me professionally, those were the two tools I was using. I was using the Echo, Wi-Fi design tool,
Mm-hmm.
and the MetaGeek suite of tools. Um, every day, I would pull those out
Yep.
and gather data, and solve problems or create designs or whatnot. So it's got to feel good, and maybe you can expand on that a little bit on being a part of you know the tools that a lot of us use on a regular basis, that the development of those tools. And um, it's got to feel, I would think it feels pretty good to have contributed, at that direct level to the community. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, being I did sort of move into a face of the company role, kind of like UC said, like nobody else wanted to do it, but I was really excited about the technology and the people, and so it just kind of made sense for me to do that. I remember one time I picked up the phone. I was covering tech support that day, and I picked up the phone and said, MetaGeek, this is Joel. And somebody was like, okay, that's weird. I just watched a video of you on our website, and then I called in, and it was your voice in the phone tree, and then you answered, like, is MetaGeek just you? And I was like, no, 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 no. There's a bunch of people here. It's just you just lucked out that you happen to interface with me. So, like it just happened like that. But my first round at MetaGeek, I wasn't super influential on the development of the products. I was mostly serving in a sales and tech support role there and just training people on how to use it. But we did have a product team that was focused on the actual specification and development of it. But what I did really enjoy about that was getting to talk to so many people, getting to interface with wireless network engineers in every vertical imaginable. It was just a totally mixed bag of like what kind of network engineer you were going to talk to that day, or maybe even just like a small business IT guy or something like that. So I love the opportunity to get to know so many different people, and it's also fun that since MetaGeek's spectrum analysis stuff was so prevalent back in the day, since Ekahau was the design tool for so long, that I have this commonality with so many people, and that we're all familiar with the same tools, even if we come from different vendor backgrounds and things like that. It's all there's so much commonality there that it's always fun to meet old friends and things like that. So yeah, really enjoyed that, and really enjoyed being at the center of what I think were like two of the best parts of the toolkit at the time. There were some other great tools out there, don't get me wrong, but that was just something that everybody was using.
Awesome. Well, so you now transition, you move over to Ekahau. What what can you? I mean, what
Mm-hmm.
prompted that? Did you feel like your time was just done at MetaGeek, and this was something that you wanted to get more into on the design side? And what kind of prompted you to make that move?
Yeah, a big part of it was I wanted to be a little bit closer to product development, and transitioning to Ekahau allowed me to do that. I wasn't on the product team, but I had some influence over the product. Of course, I got to work with Jerry, who was on the product team at Ekahau, very very closely. Also, I wanted to learn some more skills, so I'd been doing spectrum analysis and packet analysis for a long time. I had been selling Ekahau as a reseller, but I wanted to get some more hands-on time with the tool, and maybe use it in some practical ways. And so that was a really good opportunity to do that. Of course, I knew UC because MetaGeek and Ekahau did business for years and years and years, and knew Jerry, and yeah, it just made sense. It was a good career move at the time, and good for my career growth.
So how long before UC got his claws into you then?
As far as like
Um,
how long was I at
no,
MetaGeek before?
how as you transitioned into Ekahau, right, and you came on as a sales engineer and got into training. Um, if you look at it from an outsider's perspective, someone who's just in the community who does Wi-Fi, it seems like the two of you kind of came together pretty quickly once you got over there to Ekahau. And I know there was some previous history interaction between you guys before you went over, just like you said. Um, but it seemed, at least again from an outsider's perspective, that you guys kind of came together pretty quickly. And anytime now there was somebody talking about Ekahau, it was UC and Joel, a lot of it. And like you said, Jerry, of course, was also pretty involved in what he was doing there with Ekahau. But again, a lot of it came down to UC and Joel. It seemed like, at least on the outside. So did you guys like start working together on different things immediately, or was it after you had some time in your role there at Ekahau after you made the move?
I think it was pretty immediate that our work together started, primarily because there were several of us in the U.S. Well, kind of the whole sales engineering team. We all worked with UC a lot, since UC was doing a lot of the marketing, a lot of the outreach kind of stuff. So we kind of had our core team for a while where like for example, when we started out, it was me and Nick Turner, who I actually had not met until I started at Ekahau. I was like 3 months into working at Ekahau. Jerry and I went to Helsinki to to the office to see everybody, and that's when I met Nick for the first time. And now Nick is like one of my closest friends. So we that relationship, I really value that, and I'm very thankful to Ekahau for bringing us together in that way so that we could start a friendship. But yeah, it's like Nick, Jerry, UC, and I were kind of the U.S. face of the company, even though UC wasn't in the U.S. But since we were doing webinars and things like that, that was kind of. And I guess Nick has never been in the U.S. either. He's in the U.K. But I feel like the four of us were kind of like the face of the sales engineering and the marketing side of things for a while. Not necessarily that we were the whole marketing team. UC, comment?
Yeah, speaking of webinars, was it your first day already? So like what,
Oh my
to Todd's
gosh.
question about like, crash landing into Ekahau and all of that. You want to talk about the, your first day and the webinar you got to host?
Yeah. So yeah, I joined Ekahau, and there was a webinar coming up, and UC was of course leading that. And he's like, by the way, we have a new team member here, the Boise Balmer. And then he posted the GIF of Steve Ballmer when he's on stage and he's all sweaty and he's going, developers, developers, developers. And that's how UC introduced me. So yeah, thanks for that, UC. That was great.
Yeah, this was
Why
totally
do why
unscripted,
am I
of
working
course.
with you again?
You had no idea it was coming, right? So, and your first
There's
Oh
nothing
day.
wrong
yeah,
with a bit of hazing, right?
So talk
my
about
very
crash
first
landing.
day. So oh yeah, and that's what it was. But it was good. So yeah. Yes, the start of a long relationship there. So for now, we'll see
Yeah,
how it
yeah. And
goes. But
granted, I knew we knew one another from the past quite well enough, so that I knew I could safely crack that joke,
Sure.
and you would
oh
take it the
yeah,
right way. I would never do that to
I mean,
like somebody who I didn't think could take it.
oh, it was fantastic. It was horrifying and hilarious at the same time. So yeah, don't worry, UC, you're good. Hey, here we are. Look, here we
Sorry.
are. So obviously it worked out. So nice work, nice work. Well, that's one thing I loved about the team is that we did stuff like that all the time, just ridiculous off the wall things. Some of our webinars were just nutty, but people loved it. I mean, we had great turnouts, we had lots of people joining. The webinars were a huge highlight. That was a lot of fun, and I think that's a tradition that I think Ekahau has continued to this day, where they're doing fun and engaging webinars, and of course we are too. I think we're doing fun and engaging webinars, but
We really
yeah,
should.
it was a lot of fun.
I mean, now that we're here and we're on the air and this is almost live, so don't you think, Joel, we should restart, take some kind of a different angle, but do some
We
kind of
should.
periodic webinars? What do you think? What do you think,
We
Todd?
You
should.
know what?
Yeah, we
I
Like,
think what
yeah.
makes you guys, Joel, you were talking about your team, the team you guys were a part of there at Ekahau, and you were doing these fun webinars and you were getting lots of participation, attendance. I think the reason why that happened is because when you guys get together, you have fun together, right? You talk about Wi-Fi, you talk about all the different things that we're interested in as a community, but then you do it in a way that it's very evident that you guys are having fun while you know, develop a product, sell a product, whatever it is you're doing, you're having fun doing it. And so from an outsider's point of view, it, it's very engaging to watch people who are having fun doing what they're doing. And so I think it's pretty evident then if you guys look at how I think it was, if I remember correctly, when you guys left Ekahau and ended up at Mist, it was the two of you and Jerry, is that right? Who all kind of moved almost like a group into Mist. Is that accurate? Do I have that right?
Jerry went to
Oh,
Aruba,
Aruba. Okay.
I think. But yeah, Joel and me, and then some other ex-Ekaho people ended up at Mist, and but yeah, to the fun part. I was just gonna say, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, it's contagious. I think like if you're genuinely having fun, it can be even like online, it can be contagious. And the other thing is you can't really fake it, right? Like if you're not genuinely enjoying what you do, and if you're not genuinely enjoying the company, it comes out as forced. But if you really enjoy it, it becomes very contagious. And yeah, to Joel's point, like with Nick and Jerry and Joel, it was yeah. That's what it was like. Like genuinely, we were working super hard. I think the results were good, but we were also having fun at the time.
Well, that's great. Well, I
Yep, having lots of fun.
go
And
ahead, Joel. I don't want to cut you off, but I know I want to be sensitive to time and I want to get to our discussion portion, Jill. But to kind of sum things up on you and kind of your story, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
yeah, I'll give you the last couple things that happened. So yeah, went to Mist and worked as a channel SE there for a while, and that was a lot of fun. I learned a ton there. Working for a vendor, getting to see the networking side of things was hugely advantageous, and I'm really grateful to that team for that opportunity. I love that; it was so much fun. Then Ryan Woodings, founder CEO of MetaGeek, contacted me and was like, "Hey man, I would love for you to come back and be our product owner." And that was sort of a dream come true for me because that was a suite of tools that I had a lot of history with and really loved. And I was really excited at the opportunity to go and lead that. So went and did that for a year and a half. Ryan and I introduced MetaGeek Tonic, which is a packet analysis tool that's like a totally different take on how to do packet analysis. That was so much fun. And then about the time that UC was starting to hound me about coming over to Hamina, then MetaGeek sold to a company called Avik, who is a fantastic company, amazing company culture. Like it was, they were such a good company that it was a tough decision to leave. It was like, oh, things are looking so good here, and it could be so much fun. But ultimately, I decided like, you know what, I want to go work on network design tools again. And so came over to Hamina, and then in the meantime, Trent Cutler came back to MetaGeek slash Avik and is now leading development on Tonic, which is I don't think it could have worked out any better. Like he has fulfilled some of the dreams that I had for Tonic already, and he's also done a bunch of new stuff that I probably would never have thought of, and so it's just really turning out to be a fantastic tool. And so I'm just really thankful for how that turned out, and also really excited to be working at Hamina. So that's it. That's the Joel story.
That's great. Thanks. I don't know if you knew this or not, but Trent was actually for a very short time my co-host on this podcast. So we started together.
Oh, fantastic.
We interviewed each other as kind of episode 0.1 and 0.2, and then as we started booking other guests in, we could never get our schedules to align right, and so he was there initially. If you go look at our episodes, you'll see the two of us there kind of interviewing each other. But yeah, he's a sharp guy, and I think you left things in good hands there with at MetaGeek.
Couldn't have.
Yeah,
Couldn't
well,
have been
thanks,
better.
guys. I appreciate you sharing, your story with the community and here on the podcast. I want to dive now into, and you guys, I've got a hard stop here in 25 minutes. I'm sure you guys probably do too. If you need to end earlier, just say, hey, Todd, we're out of time. But I did want to talk a bit about Hamina, right? What you guys are working on now. And I wanted to talk a bit about just kind of, again, you see kind of how that started, why you decided to jump back into that ring and create your own vision of a Wi-Fi design tool, and how things kind of led to getting Joel back with you, and again, just like, how's it going now? What are some things we can look forward to? So I know it's kind of a lot, but just kind of, if you guys can, just talk a bit about, starting up. You have the startup now, a small, brand new company, working on a tool. that already has, a large dominant player, Ekahau, we all still use Ekahau. Why get back into the ring, you see, and develop a tool that does something similar?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I do remember a few people t telling me that I was nuts, and that there already was a play in town that was pretty much a monopoly. And it doesn't make it any easier, of course, but it also makes it a lot more fun because I mean, if it wasn't much of a challenge, then where's the
Sure,
fun in it? So definitely wasn't discouraged by that, but was very much encouraged by kind of some of the, like, at the risk of using a cliche word, disruption points in the industry that made it feel like it was the right time. Like web technologies were far enough finally, so that we could actually make a natively cloud, natively web-based tool. But first of all, make predominantly cloud-based tool was possible to create that could integrate. Like it seemed like tools can be now cloud, Wi-Fi is now in the cloud, integrations, APIs are starting to get there, so we could actually make seamless integrations and transfer data back and forth, stuff like that. So there's a little bit of workflow disruption there. Pricing, certainly, like price points seemed ripe for disruption. People are used to SaaS models. People are used to buying products directly, not just through a three-tier channel. So the whole buying process could probably be made automatic. Then there was like what being a wireless show, definitely on the wireless space, there was a lot of disruption. Obviously, at that point, like Wi-Fi 6E was just about to start to see the light of day. So 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi, everybody needs to reinvest in new tools, stuff like that. Private cellular, certainly still kind of, some of it on the horizon, but already starting to materialize. And, not to forget, like pretty much every company has some kind of like what I just call IoT wireless. So BLE, Zigbee, in-ocean, whatever it is, most companies have that kind of stuff. And there wasn't like one tool to do all of that. And then also like, talk to a couple of hundred people, and then it was clear that we also need to account for switching, cabling, PoE, budgeting, stuff like that. So it started to feel like, there's enough here. There's enough of a difference here and enough disruption to make this interesting. If it was all the same, like none of us would have ever done it. But there's a significant enough amount of disruption. Plus, we felt, right or wrong, call it BS, call it bullish, call it whatever, but we felt like we have a little bit of an unfair advantage because we have some experience in the industry, stuff like that. So it's at that point, maybe in Hamina, 9 months in, 10 months in, that's kind of the line of thinking we started to have. Like, yeah, it's definitely you know the industry is shaping out to be along the lines of what was projected, and enough
yeah,
disruption
and
will
I,
happen.
and
I don't
you
know.
probably already know this as well. You've probably heard this a lot, but um, again, just as being someone else in the community, when I heard that UC was now not only getting back into the Wi-Fi design game, but starting his own company, that like piqued a lot of our interest. Like, oh, what's going on here? And so I think just the simple fact that you're doing that um, caught the attention of a lot of us in the community and we're all, I think, very eager to, see how it turns out, right? And I think now that you guys have, you've got a product out there already, and a lot of us have already been able to get our hands on it. It's gotta it's gotta be very satisfying to hear from people in the community or the community as a whole, the excitement that we have about this new product that you're building. Tell us a bit about how does the community impact what you guys are doing there at Hamina?
I
Go
one
ahead,
thing I
Joe.
know is that UC spent countless hours before I arrived talking to people. What do you think, UC? Thousands of conversations, most likely. And since then, it's been much the same, where it's just where the conversations just happen naturally all the time, and so we're able to suss out what the customer needs are, what's important, what's not important, and we've been able to funnel all of that into the product development. And I think UC and team did a ton of that way before I arrived. UC, anything to add to that?
No, yeah, that's right. And kind of having you scratch my back, I scratch yours, but having Joel kind of now in the States in the same time zone, that's elementary to like the only recipe we know is talk to about a lot of people, try to see, then it's just pattern matching and trying to see forest from the trees, getting a boatload of feedback and then crunching that down into key things that we need to make first or that we need to improve. Uh, but yeah, it's a lot of it is kind of the feedback loop and like short iterations. But again, a ton of it is the team is just like, yeah, they just build stuff a lot better than I could ever envision. It's just the team
Same.
is absolutely
Yeah,
out of
I'm
this world.
reminded of
Hmm.
an encounter we all had at the WLPC here just a month ago. Right there towards the end of the conference, a colleague of mine and I met with you guys. I think after your Hamina deep dive, and I think Joel, you were I think done talking with people. After giving the deep dive and just you guys are nonstop talking about Hamina and pitching Hamina. Um, you looked like you were done, Joel. But I remember you guys, the two of you, and even I think one or two of your developers, you guys actually talked with us. We were able to
Yeah.
share with you guys one of our, a few details about an upcoming opportunity and some of the challenges that we have around that. And you guys were just like, yeah, we might be able to do this and this and this. And you were, it seemed to me at least, you guys were kind of soaking all of that up. Even though at this time I think you guys were already saturated, you were still taking that feedback and thinking of what you can do to perhaps enhance the tool so that it can um, help us in our particular challenges that we were having. And I just have to say kudos to you guys for doing that, for taking that time, for listening and continuing to get that feedback from the community, because I think that's what makes a great product.
Well, one thing I will say is, after an intense conference like WLPC, I I can talk about Wi-Fi with all my Wi-Fi friends almost continuously. Like there's almost no limit, because I find it to be super interesting, and I love the people, and so that's just a really good combination. And it makes it easy to do that. Also, I was coming down with a cold then, so I yeah, sorry if I looked if I looked miserable. So I was trying to hide it, and I also didn't want to get anybody sick, so I was trying to keep my distance from people. But yeah, we just enjoy those conferences so much. We enjoy getting out and talking to people, hearing about what their needs are, what their pain points are, and addressing those. It's just it's super fun. Uh, this is one of those jobs where there's a silly saying out there about, if you work a job that you love, you don't work a day in your life, or something like that. I don't know if it's quite like that, but I really enjoy this. UC, I think you probably do. I know you do too. Like I live for this. This is great. It's so much
Well,
fun.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and after
Cool.
after this talk, I'm sure like a grand piano will fall into our heads, and we'll be miserable for the rest of our lives now that we have jinxed it. But yeah, totally agree. And
Sorry, my bad.
uh, just real quickly, Todd. So right after our discussion, Robert Boardman hijacked me, and for 30 minutes we were looking at his like ginormous projects on Hamina that he's been working on for Mist, and kind of writing down issues and things to fix and stuff like that. So it is really nonstop. After that conference, went to Mobile World Congress. That's why I look like right now, because it hasn't been that long since been back from there. So yeah, there, to Joel's point, love talking about it, but I've reached a limit now.
Well, that's awesome.
No, I've recovered, so it's all
It's
good
good.
now.
Obviously, when when you do a startup, there's going to be some blood in the water. It's just part of how it goes. I want to talk about two more things, and then we can wrap it up. One, when we were there at the WLPC, you guys got some kind of an award or something. Tell us a bit about what you guys got, and why do you think you got it?
Yeah, we won. We got an award from the Wi-Fi Awards, which is the award program put on by Keith and Tawny and Sam and JD, and that's everybody, right? I think that's everybody that leads in the
Hmm.
Wi-Fi Awards. So, which product category did we win? I forget now.
It
Oh, I
wasn't a
really should
product
remember
category,
this.
I think. It was company
Yeah,
leadership
it was.
award. But then
That's it.
again, because we have really no company structure, I guess that's like for everybody. Because it's pretty much like autonomous, the whole thing, whole animal. So I would just take it as that's really nice, but it's kudos to the team.
So you guys are.
Yeah, and we really do
Go ahead,
have
Joe.
an.
Go ahead.
Sorry, with that's carrier sense avoidance not working in that case. So Wi-Fi joke. Yeah, we really do have just an amazing development team. It's just and right now the organization structure at the company is very flat, and everybody just works together. It's pretty dynamic, and I just really cannot emphasize enough like what an amazing job our team does and how good they are at taking our little blurbs of like customers need blah 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 and turning it into something that's usable and beautiful and it's I'm just really impressed with them. And you probably met a couple of them at WLPC. Santu and Vile were there, and everybody tells me like, oh, Finns are so quiet, they're so reserved, and then they're out there, they're partying all the time, they're going to dinner with everybody. Like I'm just so impressed with those guys on multiple levels.
Yeah, I have to say, or I have to think then that your guys' approach. Again, we've talked a lot about this. Your approach with the community um, has to have been, in my opinion, the driving factor behind such a young company winning an award like that, right? If you look at some of the other competition that's out there and the products that they already have, the very, developed and mature products that are out there, no hard feelings, but I was kind of surprised you guys won. And,
So are
Hey,
we.
that makes two of us.
but if you think about it, leadership, right? And you guys were talking about, Joel, you mentioned it's kind of the structure there is very flat. You guys are all, um, you know, at some level or another leading the way for that company. And again, how you guys engage the community, I think, shows, the importance of again that engagement, getting the feedback, and then actually not just listening to the community and getting feedback, but actually using that feedback to further develop the product, right? And that's evident with where you guys are today with the Hamina planner that exists right now. And so again, congrats and kudos to you guys for leading your company in that way and engaging the community as you do. While surprising, I do think it still is warranted that you guys won that. So again, kudos. Last couple of minutes here, what what can we look forward to with Hamina? What should we be getting excited about in the community? Give us some teasers here.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, 1.5 years in, so we haven't played this game for very long. So let's be honest, we're still kind of building the basic building blocks. So the planner is starting to get to shape. You saw some of like the upcoming things at WLPC. We will be releasing like floor to floor planning, in a couple of weeks, and also like capacity planning, same thing. Those are pretty much done and dusted under QA. And then a lot of the emphasis in the last 6 months has gone to the site survey side of things, validation, troubleshooting, that kind of stuff. Same thing there. First version will be kind of like building the basic building blocks. So just performing the surveys, capturing data from different devices, including our exclusive device as well, and kind of analysis of that, all of that. But just like the planner, it will not have all the nerd knobs. It will never have all the nerd knobs. We try to like extract what's the essence of every use case and only bring the necessities so that the user interface doesn't get too convoluted and the tasks don't get to be too cumbersome and time taking, stuff like that. But over time, I think it's going to be pretty amazing from the field application perspective as well. First for Wi-Fi, then also for private cellular, then also for other frequencies, just like we did with the planner as well. So that, but then once we have those building blocks ready, that's when the kind of the true disruption only can start, and that's when you'll start to see something like very, very. I feel like we've done things quite differently from the industry already today. If we look at like the platform we use, the way we lay down heat maps, the way we do reporting, switching, cabling, all of that. But I feel like what keeps me going is this is just the beginning. This is just the basic building blocks. 1.5 years in. 1.5 years in.
Well, that's what I keep. I also tell myself, and a lot of us in the industry, when we get our hands on, it's almost unfair to compare you guys to a product that's been out for years, but we do, right? We can't help but to not compare you to these other tools
Yeah.
because that's what's out there right now, and that's who you're going up against. Um, and so there, and you guys are the first to say that, as you just did, UC, there's you guys don't do it all yet. There's still a lot of development in the works, a lot that you guys are bringing out, bit by bit. Um, but it's been very interesting to see how this product is developing. I think we all have the understanding that, like you just said, you only been around for a year and a half, right? There's only so much you can do in a year and a half as you develop a product. Um, and so, what you have brought to the table, in my opinion, again, like you said, the platform, the web-based, and some of the other things that you're focusing on are really kind of whet our appetites for how we think this product might one day be. And especially as you guys talk about now focusing on the whole, actual surveying, going out and doing a passive survey. We all know that to do that, you have to have some kind of device that you're using to capture that data, right? And so we hear from you guys that you're not only working on your own device, which we're all super eager to hear more about, but you're partnering with other companies, like you said at the start of this, right? With Air Magnet, you actually can use their tool, their hardware to capture data, and it sounds like you're going to be able to take that data into Hamina, and use it as a
Yes,
survey,
sir. Yes, sir.
which is really exciting.
Yeah. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that? You know, NetAlly and Hamina would actually integrate. But
Yeah,
it's happening.
yeah. Well, it's great to see. It's great to see that. I think that collaboration only helps the community, and if you're a company that's interested in helping the community, that community is going to support you. Um, that's how I feel about that. So this is great. Again, we're all excited about seeing
Agreed.
what you guys come up with for your survey device.
Sorry,
No, I was
sorry.
going to say we're
You're
at
done.
we're
You
at
are
our
indeed.
time limit here. I don't want to keep you guys any longer than we have. We already kind of went over what I told you we would do, but um, guys, I really wish you guys the best of luck at Hamina, and continuing to create a tool, a solution um, that we all will get to use and start using regularly at some point in our careers as Wi-Fi engineers. We're excited about where it's going, and again, can't wait to see what you guys come up with for your what are you going to call it? Like drop kick or side punch, or what are you going to call your device?
Something like that. The kung fu.
Cool. Well, any closing words, guys?
None from me except thanks for having us on, Todd. This was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed the conversation with you. I really
It was an
appreciate it.
absolute pleasure, and you're very much doing a favor. Well, excluding our episode, but interviewing some of the veterans in the industry, I think you're absolutely doing a favor to the industry, and this is well needed. So thank you, Todd, for everything you
Oh,
do.
thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
those words, guys.
thank you.
You see, you're ever the self-deprecator. You're an example in self-deprecation. So, good luck, you see, in your future political career. And guys, we'll see you around.
All right,
See
thank
you,
you,
Todd.
Todd.
Thanks
See you
again.
around.